Hello and welcome back to Silent Screaming Resurrected.
Hello.
Hello. Oh yeah, a little bit of whispering for the ASMR fans in the audience. All three of you. We are so excited to be back. You might be noticing an unfamiliar face. Jordan is a little under the weather, so today we have a guest host. Her name is Caroline Munsell. I'm so excited. Everyone clap in your homes or cars or wherever you are. Don't get in a wreck, though, for Caroline.
No, be safe.
And
I'm not
welcome.
worth a wreck.
I think you are.
Seriously, that means so much to me.
Like, the more violent, I'm kidding. Too dark.
Can we cut it? Can we cut that?
Rein it in. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, this is a horror, comedy, ASMR movie review podcast. Yes. There's a lot of niches combining for this one. Usually we talk about a horror movie of some kind and then provide a little ASMR commentary. We won't have as much today because Jordan is our ASMR aficionado. Pour one out for the homies. She's alive. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, we are talking about the 2005 hit classic film The Skeleton Key, which stars Kate Hudson, and it is set in Louisiana, which felt like the perfect movie for Caroline, who is a Louisiana native.
Louisiana. Yes.
Welcome to Texas.
Thank
You've been here a while. It's a belated welcome, but so before we get into the movie, first, like, who is Caroline Munsell? Like, if someone asked you that question, like I'm asking you now, what would you say?
That's the opening question.
Going real deep, real fast.
Oh God. Well, for starters, I'm just a girl, so
I'm just a girl.
Sue me. I also am recovering from being a bit under the weather, so sorry I sound a bit congested, folks.
It just sounds like sexy sultry, you know? Just like a little bit of the gravel in the voice.
Oh, thank God. Great. That's exactly what I was going for. Who am I? I happen to be the composer for the new theme song for this podcast, which is exciting. I also dabble in a bit of comedy, and gosh, I don't know. I'm just
you're being so humble. Like a bit of comedy. You're like such a comedy icon on the internet already.
Absolutely not. I'm just a girl goofing and gagging.
Goofing and scheming.
Goofing and scheming. That's a lot better than goofs and gags works, but goofing and gagging takes on a different meaning.
Oh my God.
Let's go with just a girl goofing and scheming, trying to find my place in it all. I was born in Florida, but we don't really count that part of my life.
I was born in California, so same. I mean,
my God.
As much as I would have loved to have probably stayed there a little longer, being a gay child who grew up in small town East Texas, and I was born in Los Angeles, well, Palm Springs technically.
Wow, they really.
But they moved here within a year of me being born, so didn't give me the opportunity.
Well, maybe if you had started showing signs sooner,
they
might have.
I'll take notes for next time. For my next reincarnation.
Right, absolutely. But I was born in Florida. My family moved when I was like 3 or 4, I think. Maybe 5 or 6. Actually, I'm not quite sure. But too young for me to remember. Early days. And then we moved to Louisiana. And then I grew up there in Lafayette. And then I moved to Waco for college. I went to Baylor, which is sort of how I know you.
Yeah, I don't know if we interacted during our time, but I think I came back and saw you in a couple productions. I saw you in The Wolves.
Yes, yeah.
And yeah, you were amazing.
Oh my God, stop.
So many years ago, but you were fantastic.
Stop, can we play the tapes? But so then I moved to Texas. So I went from Florida to Louisiana to Texas. So my track record is not phenomenal.
Just scrolling through the South, basically.
Yes. And now I'm based here in Austin. I moved to Austin after COVID because I graduated in 2020, the infamous year of the starting of COVID.
Womp womp.
Womp womp. And so after that, I was like, I don't know what is going on. So I went back home for a bit, which I'm really grateful for now. But after a minute, it was time to fly from the nest again. And I found myself here in Austin. So we're now in the same space. And this is how we've kind of connected, which has been so fun.
Yeah, and you're a member of Egg Party.
Yes.
Which is a group, I'll let you talk about it. You can talk about it better than I can, probably.
Egg Party is my roommates. So there are 6 of us total, and we do improv and sketch comedy, and we all live together in one house. So, yep, that's it.
It's a really fun group. Y'all are so funny. Like, y'all consistently make me laugh so hard.
Oh, thanks, Patrick.
And I have other people send me Egg Party videos that are not affiliated.
Really?
And I'm always like, I know them.
I know them.
So I know from our conversations that you're not the biggest horror fan, or you're not much of like a movie person in general.
Way
So,
to call me out. Okay, so I'm not super a horror person, specifically like gore.
Right.
I can do suspense movies. I've watched a lot of kidnapping movies, which is not great for my psyche by any means or my mental health.
I feel like it's just the true crime thing. Everyone's like constantly
which is
consuming
so
that, and
terrible.
It's so bad for all of us.
I know, and why am I doing it? I don't know I'm doing it. I don't know. There's a running joke in my house, as you kind of just referenced, that I've never seen any movies because basically up until like after college, I just really never had time to watch many. I've seen a few, but I slept so little throughout the most formative years of my life that I don't remember anything.
In your childhood, do you remember seeing any specific horror movies? Is there like one that sticks out for you?
Yes, and it is the first one that I've ever seen, which is why I think it sticks out to me so much. But it was Darkness Falls. Have you seen that?
Oh yeah, I've seen that. It's the tooth fairy one, right?
Yes. Also, one of my roommates, Lucas, saw it, and for some reason, I just assumed nobody had ever seen this because I haven't heard anybody talk about it since.
It's kind of like obscure somehow, but I feel like I remember watching it and it freaking me out as a child or preteen.
It did freak me out. I watched it at a girls' soccer team slumber party. We all watched this together. So thank God there were other people there, but I was so freaked out.
The way that Louisiana is represented in media, it's like quite a spooky state. So like before we get into that, because I think that'll be a whole moment.
Okay.
What was your favorite part of growing up in Louisiana?
Probably the food.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a basic answer, but man, it just hits different. And
I have a controversial question for you that might get you canceled by Louisianans too. So.
Oh my God, what?
So I knew we would talk about food at some point, so I wanted to do a fuck, marry, kill Cajun food. So it's and just think of it as like fuck is like you eat it one time, like a big feast, but you can never have it again. Marries, you can eat it
so
as much as you want to kill. Basically, yeah. Okay, fuck, marry, kill, jambalaya, gumbo, or crawfish etouffee.
Okay. Marry gumbo. Fuck jambalaya, kill crawfish etouffee.
Wow. Okay. I feel like that's like a pretty. This sounds like an insult. I don't mean it. It's a safe. Like for like the Cajun folk out there will be like that makes sense.
Okay.
I might get canceled. I've not had good gumbo before.
Oh, well, that's a problem, baby.
I know, I've just not had good.
Oh my gosh, I make it every Christmas.
God, I'll have to like come over.
Shoot, yes, okay. If it still stays cold, I'll definitely need to make it again. You can absolutely come try some.
I would love to.
Because I've definitely had gumbos that I did not like. It kind of depends on. You can have like a really light roux or a really dark roux. I actually don't like the roux to be too dark. I like it to be spicy and light. So I don't actually like my mom's gumbo that much.
Oh my God.
Don't tell her this. I actually think mine is better, but do not let her know I said that.
She's gonna be so pissed.
She's gonna be pissed.
Oh my God.
And jambalaya is also really, really good. But that to me depends. I've also had some bad jambalaya. And crawfish etouffee is good, but I think I would get
bored.
Tired of it maybe sooner than I would the jambalaya and the gumbo.
I get that. And also there's a lot of things I feel like you can do with jambalaya and gumbo that you can't. Crawfish etouffee is kind of like one thing.
I mean, gumbo, you can dump bread in it. You can drink it through a straw. You can
drink it through a straw. Oh my God, just like cut the jambalaya on the road. Jambalaya?
That's good.
Gumbo. Well,
That's
now I'm definitely
good.
getting canceled. Crawfish etouffee is my like go-to just because there was one Cajun restaurant in Longview, Texas, where I grew up called Dudley's. And Dudley's was a Cajun restaurant, and that was the thing they were really good at was crawfish etouffee.
Man, there was this Cajun place that opened up in Waco, and I was like, I'll be the judge of that. And that was the worst gumbo I've ever had. I hated it. It was like fruity.
What's the most like common misconception about Louisiana that you see in like film and TV?
Is this where I talk about the spookification?
Absolutely.
Okay.
The spookification of Louisiana.
And let me say something on this. I wrote this in my notes when I was watching the movie because something that is so just wild to me. I guess growing up in Louisiana, is this spookification of that's what I'm calling it, of Louisiana. It's like natural terrain and the swamps. And I guess like I don't know much about like voodoo or hoodoo. I wasn't aware of that at all, or that history, and that like there's a lot of cultural nuance there. That can all is very tied to nature in the land. So maybe that's where some of it comes from. But just inherently the shots of in like movies where they take the swamp, and I guess because of the alligators and the moss hanging from the trees, and then they just show it at night and they make the swamp out to be so scary, which is just crazy to me, because if you go actually on like a boat out there, it is gorgeous. It's beautiful. And my roommates, we just came back from Louisiana this past weekend. We were there celebrating Mardi Gras. And half of them went on a swamp tour, but there were a ton of alligators, and they were all just talking about how beautiful it was, and all the photos are gorgeous. And of course, it's in the daylight, but it's just so silly to me every time they're like, "Ooh, swamp."
And I'm sure that's why like the media representation is part of why I've always been like a little spooked by the swamp. But honestly, I've just been always rationally, or whatever, afraid of alligators and crocodiles. They just
I would say rationally
freak me out, and like I could be far away from bodies of water and just start thinking about them, and my blood pressure will just like.
Oh well, look! I came dressed on theme.
Oh my gosh!
These are alligator
socks. I love it.
Peep the sock.
But yeah, well, if Louisiana isn't the spookiest state, what do you think is the spookiest state?
Wait, that's a good question.
I think Texas is pretty.
I was about to say
spooky.
Texas with all these laws. That
We're spooky in a much more serious way. No ghosts, but there are definitely some old men making a lot of terrible decisions for us.
Yeah, let's leave it at that.
We again are going to talk about Skeleton Key, and we'll be right back to discuss that. Bye-bye.
Bye.
We always end up doing that every time we do it. Jordan's is a combination of Owen Wilson and Jennifer Coolidge, her impression. I don't know why every time I'm like, it sounds like both of them simultaneously. God, I want a hot dog real bad.
Makes me want a hot dog real bad.
Oh my God, yours is so good.
No, stop.
Oh God, you look like the 4th of July.
Stop me now.
It's incredible.
That's the only celebrity impression I can do.
Today we're talking about The Skeleton Key, which was a movie that came out in 2005 starring Nepo baby extraordinaire Kate Hudson.
Fabletics Queen.
Yes, Fabletics Queen. So Skeleton Key is set in Louisiana. It's about the premise that IMDb gives you as a hospice nurse working at a spooky New Orleans plantation home. Again, the spookification of New Orleans and Louisiana. Finds herself entangled in a mystery involving the house's dark past. So, when you watched this movie, what were some of your initial thoughts?
My initial thoughts were it was a mega jump scare to me that Kate Hudson is playing a character named Caroline.
I was going to mention that. I don't know.
It shook me to my core for some reason. Just when they opened up and addressed her as Caroline, I jumped, and my roommates were watching it with me, and everybody turned and looked at me. We were all like, what? Because it's in Louisiana. And so I thought, but I don't know if you did that on purpose. Or...
No, I truly did not. I was watching it by myself, and I went, when it got to the first time they said Caroline, I was like, oh.
Yeah, I know, it got me. And I'm referencing, I took some notes while watching it to help me remember.
Be proud. I have my little note while I have the
Wait, sure, you have a whole laptop. I'm like feeling like I have to hide this.
Pretend like you're just remembering everything off the top.
One thing about me is I ain't going to remember a movie. So I got to take notes. Okay, yes. So a couple of my first impressions were, one, that was a jump scare. Two, this was definitely filmed in the early 2000s.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
So many footprints from the early 2000s all over this thing, or fingerprints, or whatever you say, thumbprint. I don't know, one of those.
And then it was not as like scary as I thought it would be. It was more of thriller. I guess I thought there was going to be more gore based off of the trailer. So it was actually, I was really scared to watch it. So I did have to watch it during the daytime, and I had some roommates watch it with me because I was too scared to watch it alone. But it was a lot like easier to watch as somebody that was scared of watching a horror film than I thought it would be. The ending I never saw coming. And then now that I know the ending and the surprise twist because that was really a twist.
Spoiler alert.
Yes, there's so many lines that I had written down from the beginning where I was like, what the hell was that? Or like, that didn't make any sense. Or that was such a weird, specific choice. And then, of course, it was all intentional.
Yep.
Of course, it all makes sense now.
It all makes sense at the end. I feel like the story is well constructed. Like
Yeah.
it's the bones are there. Now, is it really playing on a lot of like stereotypes and tropes about Louisiana and, hoodoo culture and all of that? Absolutely. But I still feel like it creates a effective like thriller.
Yeah.
And the twist I feel like is really unpredictable if you
Yes.
don't know what's coming. But when you watch it again, oh my God, so many things. Like
Yeah, the writing on the wall.
exactly the line about her, because when Kate Hudson's character gets to this plantation, the matriarch of the house, Violet, is like, she doesn't have a southern accent. Like, I hate it. I don't remember what her specific words are.
Yeah.
And that's because she's like, well, I have to imitate this Bostonian girl or wherever she was from and pretend like I'm not a southerner whenever I do my body snatching.
Well, and also, are we allowed to like reveal like any
Yes.
spoilers on here?
I think our podcast, we try to be like, give spoiler heads up.
Okay.
So like if you have not seen this movie,
Yeah, spoiler heads
go
up.
watch it. It is like $3. I was like, really?
Yeah,
I had to
I
like
rented
rent it.
it.
But I think it's on Prime and a few other platforms. So go pause right now. Go watch it real quick and then come back.
Yeah.
Did you do it? Are you back?
Did you watch?
So happy to have you. But yes, go ahead. You can spoil away.
So, spoiler alert. Basically, the old woman ends up like switching. She Freaky Fridays. She switches bodies with Kate Hudson's character, and it's basically like, snatching the younger body so she can stay alive and youthful for as long as she wants. And her counterpart, this lawyer, we find out, had recently done the same thing with the old man of the house.
Yep.
And so the old man is actually the lawyer's soul trapped inside this like old decrepit body.
And so he spends the whole movie being like trying to get away and like crawling and all
and
that
trying
stuff.
to kill himself, which I like was so confused about. But there's this line at the beginning when Kate Hudson shows up to the house and the old woman, she says, "Oh, I bet you're written on, all marked up." And she was talking about being tattooed. And I was like, what a weird thing for her to just randomly comment on. And then it's like, oh, it's because she knew she was going to be in her body.
Yep. And she was like, I have to be in this
Yeah.
tattooed bitch's body.
This also
Boo.
reminded me how many scenes there were of Kate Hudson with a shirt but just underwear on.
Yeah, she did a lot of Winnie the Pooh-bearing in this movie.
Is that
It
what
was
that's called?
I mean, I always just called it Pooh-bearing when you have like a top and no bottom on.
That's awesome.
Because that's like, think about Winnie. He's always got that little
You're
crop
right.
top on.
Wow, he started it.
Winnie the Pooh is such a gay icon to wear a crop top like that and just proudly.
Absolutely.
He's like a little bit of a gay bear. But anyways, and yes, Kate Hudson is in her underwear a lot for this movie, which also firmly plants this in the early 2000s. Something about the aesthetic, it was like, I don't know, just feels very, the way her eye makeup is.
The
everything
low-waisted
is very,
jeans.
In the few scenes she's wearing jeans.
Yeah, you're right. But they
Yep.
were like so long that she cuffed them up like 4 or 5 inches. It was a mega cuff. Just like it just didn't look good. She was doing it with flip flops. I don't know. Sorry, I just was really disturbed by this outfit she had on.
Oh my gosh. One of the things that I saw in the like goofs section of IMDb, because I'm always going to be looking at the mistakes that they made that people notice, is that there's a scene that Kate Hudson gets out of the shower, and then the old man that's the scene where he's like crawled out of his bed and he's crawling on like the roof of the house or on that one little overhang of the porch, like trying to escape. And she goes outside to like get him in the rain. It's pouring rain.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden her eye makeup is running and you're like,
Wasn't she just in the shower?
you were just exactly. You were just in the shower.
Yeah.
Like I think towel was still on or somehow with her, and she's now has mascara running. I'm like, that don't make no sense.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't even catch that.
Yeah, that's one of
Now
those little
that's a
things.
goof.
That's a very
That's a goof.
This movie is like dark, spooky Peter Pan Tinkerbell. Does that make sense?
No.
Let me explain my train of thought. So in order for Tinkerbell to survive, you have to believe in her.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And in this movie, the whole premise, the reason why I remember when I first watched this too, being like, why are these people like low key entertaining her like fantasies? Like Violet is very much like, don't go up there, but there's some moments where she's like really not discouraging her from like sleuthing. And it becomes clear that like through the movie that she has to believe in what's happening in order for them to body snatch, because that's the way that hoodoo, at least is how it's represented in this movie, to you know, to actually do its job. I also looked up, again, just to remind myself, because I'd looked at this in the past, the difference between voodoo and hoodoo.
And I don't actually know.
So I got this from universallifechurch.org/blog, something like that. So voodoo is more of a, again, I'm going to butcher this. I'm going to do my best. Voodoo is more of a religion, and hoodoo is more of like a spiritual practice of using like magic for like healing, protection, divination, things like that, and has its roots in like African American like folk magic, basically. So it developed in the United States. Voodoo, I think, developed elsewhere and has a whole religion around it. Apparently, hoodoo has a lot of like people will believe in hoodoo, but also believe in other religions.
Oh, okay.
They can like, you know, they can still pray to different biblical figures or Roman Catholic saints, things like that. But it's kind of incorporated into your religious practice.
Got it.
It's a separate thing.
Got it. Okay, I didn't know
And this
that.
movie does a pretty, I mean, they make a very strong attempt to really make hoodoo seem real spooky.
Yeah.
Like, real spooky. And I don't love that. I mean, I think this is definitely like we said, a product of its time, 2005, where we were a little less culturally sensitive, but it very much like demonizes the people who practice, at least the two main practitioners of hoodoo in this movie, which are the former servants of the house who body snatch with two children and then body snatch with the elderly people who were in the house. So
Yeah, that's tough because I do not know the history or culture of hoodoo or voodoo for that matter. But my gut tells me after watching the movie that, I mean, I would be curious to know if anybody, how authentic their sources were and if they really consulted with people actively practicing.
I highly doubt.
But yeah, I don't want to speak too much on it only because I don't know. But there definitely is like this spookification. I'm sure there's a better word for that. And also, there's a really, really traumatic scene that I think, or a scene that would be really, really triggering for
people of color in general. Yeah, like the scene where the servants of the house are hanged, and you find out that they basically are where they switch bodies. So it's technically also two children.
Yeah. So but it just I was really surprised the amount of that they showed. That really threw me for a loop. Because I can imagine that would be incredibly traumatizing and triggering to see.
Yeah. And I also remember reading, and again, this is something that I've read in the past, that there was this demonization of Black people in history too, about how like people who practice voodoo and hoodoo were going to like teach your white children how to do this and corrupt them, which this movie like overtly does follow that trend too.
Absolutely.
And like the worst fear happens, like their children get killed basically. So
I'm sure this was born out of that
absolutely.
mindset.
There's 100%. A lot of
like,
I mean, it's tough because I feel like some things it's really cool to like pay homage to like a culture, but I think we've come a long way in the media. Yeah. Like even American Horror Story, back when they did the season that takes place in New Orleans, it was like spooky in a way that I feel like didn't always, I don't know, match like how things actually are, which in a sense, like you don't want horror to always be realistic, but if it's playing on a real culture, a real thing, you have to be sensitive around it. So
totally. And one thing that always frustrates me when it comes to like other people's perceptions of Louisiana or just the portrayal of it is there's a huge exploitation of the really cool things, right? You know, like Mardi Gras culture and Cajun and Zydeco music and Creole and the food and like the French Quarter in New Orleans. Like all the girlies want to go to the French Quarter
Eat a
like for spring
beignet at
break and
Café
eat a
du Monde.
beignet at Cafe Du Monde. But like all of that culture comes from Black people, and when it comes to actually like then you have this other like all this media that's actually demonizing different parts of that culture. So it's just frustrating because also like this is a place that has been. I would especially get frustrated during like times where Louisiana really needed hurricane relief, and it's like, oh well, where's the energy that you brought to like wanting to visit here on your spring break now that this place is
Suddenly
actually
it's
getting
like-
washed away, but nobody wants to help out? Like, where are the resources? Why aren't you putting this in the media?
Yep.
So,
Oof. Yeah.
but anyway, I'm also not the best person to speak on this because I'm a very privileged white person that was also living in Lafayette. My home has never been that damaged from a hurricane or anything, but I can just imagine from the perspective of people living in New Orleans that it must be very, very frustrating.
Like people who've never been to Texas think that everything in Texas is like tumbleweeds and cowboys and riding your horse
Totally.
to school.
Yeah.
But like that's just not a full picture.
Yeah.
Texas is a massive state, and Louisiana is also big. So like there's a lot of different nuance and culture, and just because there's spooky ghost history and some like sordid past things that have happened in New Orleans or in Louisiana, that doesn't mean the whole state is spooky.
Yeah. Or like that a particular demographic needs to be associated with the spookiness.
But yeah, if you haven't seen Skeleton Key, I definitely recommend watching it. Just remember it as a product of its time. I feel like Kate Hudson turns in a pretty good performance here too.
Yeah.
And I feel like
I always believed her.
the matriarch, who was played by Gina Rollins, is also really great. I will say I don't feel like any of the Louisiana accents are Louisiana. They feel more like Georgia Southern to me.
Yeah, no, that's not. I forgot. That was one of my notes. Is like that the accents are always wrong, but like just Louisiana accents in general don't sound like
Feels
this.
like General Southern, which is like people lean
Yeah.
towards the like Georgia. It's like that slow like romance Southern,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it's like
Absolutely.
I think on The Office it's described as molasses falling out your mouth. That's how they talk about it.
Yeah, it just doesn't. Yeah, that sounds more Texas to me. Like the people that I know in Louisiana do not sound like that at all. It's a totally different. Now, I don't know. It may be a little bit different in New Orleans, but even the people that I know from New Orleans don't have that accent.
It still felt wrong. It still felt like they were
It felt
doing
wrong to me.
the romance.
It felt wrong to me.
Yeah. Especially when that was a plot point, was like the accents needed to be right for her to feel good. I feel like we needed to like
Yeah,
fix it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they had a dialect coach on site, but
certainly not in the early 2000s.
probably not. I also think Peter Sarsgaard, who is not a member of the Skarsgård family. For a while I thought he was, but that's
really?
Sarsgaard, not Skarsgård.
Oh my gosh! Wow.
So he does a good job as Luke, the lawyer who you find out has been body snatched already for the whole
Yes.
entire film. I
He-
generally think it's a horror. Usually there's always a stinker performance in there, but this one has a pretty solid cast.
Yeah, I definitely think that Luke and Violet, the character names, made me uncomfortable. And there were a couple times where I was like, oh, it's a bit like cheesy or almost seductive. But now that I know really what was going on, it kind of
they were
makes
actually a
sense.
couple.
Yes, especially because at first I was like, well, it's just weird writing or weird that they would deliver the lines that way. But
Yeah.
then once you find out that technically Luke is really dating the old woman's body, which also begs the question, do we think that they ever had sex while she was in that old woman body and he was the young lawyer?
Oh my god, I didn't even think about that.
Something to think about or not think about.
Jordan and I talked about this a lot in the last episode that we did. Kate Hudson's character is kind of a dum-dum sometimes.
Yes.
And honestly, like, as much as I hate that in horror, there are always dumb characters. You
Yeah.
really need someone to be dumb for the stakes, because, like, otherwise they're just gonna, like, make all the right decisions and not be put in
Right.
the terrible situations.
Yeah, to me, the dumbest thing she did is what ends up causing her to be Freaky Friday'd, is where she ends up doing the whole spell thing that the old woman was supposed to do on the floor with like hair and like dust and like blood from her hand. And to me,
She thinks it's a protection, but I'm like, why would the old woman?
yeah, like it just, I don't know. I thought that really she needed to stop her from making that kind of circle or whatever.
Yep.
I don't know. That was just dumb. And also, why didn't she bring reinforcements? And also, what she like hides the old man's body. He's still alive at this point. Well, he's actually still alive throughout the whole thing, but miserable. But she hides him under this like big sheet in the
Full
the
body.
shed, and she's like, "Stay here," as if like no. As if
One,
you're
you
not
can't
going to
move.
walk in there and see clearly the shape of a body under this cloth.
In the middle of the room. Like literally,
So
you
obvious.
cannot miss it.
And also where he couldn't have been anywhere else. Also, she tries to run over the gate in her little beetle car. Like
Yep.
a massive wrought iron gate that has like padlocks on it.
She
Are you
also
kidding me?
never questions why that gate is locked, because she comes into the plantation, starts getting spooked out after she's just talked to Luke, the lawyer, outside in New Orleans. And
Yeah.
when she comes back out to leave, the gate is locked. And like, who locked that gate? Because Violet's been in the house the whole time. She never once is like,
Yeah.
well, someone else is in it. Maybe she just thinks it's magic, like the gate locked on its own.
Well, and also like why did she go to Luke first instead of like the police? Or I don't know.
It's all very weird. I feel like the police would have helped her more anyways. It's just very odd. I also don't understand why she didn't just take the old man with her in the boat.
Yeah,
like-
why didn't she do that? I
She
never
like
thought about
canoes,
that.
or no, I don't even know if it was a canoe. It was just a little boat that she takes out on the bayou
Yeah.
that apparently is not actually really there. Like they CG'd that bayou in.
No way.
Yeah, there wasn't actually
God.
a bayou behind the house at all. It was like dry land.
Oh wow.
But they added that in, and like because the bayou that they're in technically, or where that location is like a place that actually exists, but it doesn't actually connect to New Orleans in real life. So like there was no way for her to like actually boat out of there the way that she did. But I guess
Interesting.
movie magic. So
Right.
yeah. But yeah, I feel like it's a solid one.
I did enjoy watching it. Like
And it has like a
makes you
6.5 on IMDb, which is not bad for horror either.
think- Really?
Yeah, usually horror is like 4
Really
or
low.
less. Like it's always bad on IMDb. People do
And
not
for an
give
early
a lot of
2000s
grace.
film. That's pretty
Yeah.
impressive, I'd say. It ends up being more of a slow burn
Mm-hmm.
than like a ton of jump scares at once. I think to me, actually, there are two instances that this is one moment that was supposed to be violent, but ended up just being so funny. And then one moment that was supposed
I
to
know what
be
you're
like
gonna say.
so scary, but ended up being so stupid and funny. And the first is whenever Violet breaks her legs. Violet gets her legs broken, and the way that she's just like crawling up the stairs just with her like arms, and she's like, "Caroline, I think you broke my leg," or
I think
something
the exact
like that.
words are, "I believe you broke my legs."
But it's like, dog, if your legs were really snapped like that,
You
how
would
would
not
you
be,
still be? How would you
army
be?
crawling through the house
Yeah,
right now.
up the stairs, bonkers. But the way it just ended up being like, I laughed out loud because it was so
did too.
crazy. And then the second thing is that there's this whole build in the movie where they tell you that when you look in the mirrors, you're gonna see so is it a Mama and Papa Justify, or is it the faces of
Both.
the people who've
It's both. I think it flashes Mama and Papa, or Mama Cecil and Papa Justify, or at least Mama Cecil for a second, and then it flashes the little girl that she body snatched with first.
okay,
and
so
then
like the old souls that have been
and then it flashes Violet for a second, and then it
okay.
turns into just her. I think.
So you see like faces and like people in the mirrors, and so that's why they hide all the mirrors in the house, and that's supposed to be really scary. And like you see people, like you see the old man reacting to seeing someone in the mirror, but we don't see somebody in the mirror up until this point where Kate Hudson like is looking at the mirror, and it literally was so stupid. My roommates and I burst out laughing. It just looks like the if you've ever been to the haunted house at Disney
Yep.
World, where it's just like clearly a light is like turning on in the mirror, and there's like just this drawing, like the like lame animated ghost that just like pops up for a second, that was so unscary and unintimidating, just not frightful by any means. And and just looked so fake and dumb.
You know why? I don't know why they didn't just literally bring in the actors who played Mama Cecil and
and
the
then
little
have
girl,
them,
and like just have them swap out with Kate Hudson, so it could be like literally she's seeing like
or have them appear behind. Yeah, wait,
or behind her. That would have been
Totally.
so much better.
so much better. It
Well,
really.
let's fix it.
I swear, it seriously looked like they either just like photoshopped this on there for a split second, or there was like a button on the back when you press it, it lights up this like ghost picture.
Like some Dollar General Halloween decoration.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly. And I'm like waiting the whole movie to see this bitch pop up.
You're like,
And I was like, that's it.
And Kate Hudson's just standing there going, "It's not real.
Yeah.
It's not real.
I don't believe.
Oh, that's what it is. I don't believe." But it's real. Apparently, Kate Hudson. Sorry. You go into a movie expecting the protagonist to win and to have plot armor and all that jazz and the evil to be defeated. And I just like it.
Yeah,
It's
I
more
think
real that
sometimes,
way.
it makes the writing better almost, because otherwise it'd be a bit too cliche or cheesy. I was definitely sad because I want a happy ending, but this felt more real for sure, and especially in this case.
Especially since Kate Hudson's character was a little dumb.
Yeah.
Poor Caroline. Not good representation for the Carolines.
No, not good at all.
If you liked this episode, you should follow us on Instagram. I say us, but follow me. Follow the podcast on Instagram at Silent Screaming Podcast. We're also on TikTok. And if you want to email us, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, you can email us at silentscreamingpodcast@gmail.com.
Love the email plug.
Yes, always have to have an email plug. We'd also love you to rate, review, and subscribe the podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on any platform. We're on all of them, I think, or the majority of them. So go do that. And where do you want to be found, Caroline?
Where do I want to be found? You can find me as @CaroMuns on all socials pretty much, but mainly I'm active on Instagram and TikTok.
Hell yeah. Well,
Yes.
thank you for joining me today to be my
Thank you
little
for
guest.
having me. Wait,
Cheers with our little
cheers.
vodka sweet teas for the
Yes.
Louisiana vibes. And don't drink and podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye.